Okay, so if I place a wadded t-shirt or a blanket or something up in there, all this kind of stuff gets just much too confusing. So when I'm setting something up, I set usually a taller thing in back and a lower thing in front. And I drape a t-shirt or a pillowcase over, and then I pull the front edges of it until I get some nice folds. Something that I feel like I can draw, right? So I'm actually playing with this a little bit. I can see the roundness of the things underneath. I can also see the folds of this as it drapes coming down. I kind of like this from the side, so I'm going to turn this a little bit more from the side so that I can see these folds happening over here. I'm going to pull it this way. Once again, I might have to iron before I start my assignment this week, right? Getting some nice light shadow. I might even poke it down in here a little bit so I start to get some shadow core and reflected light and cast shadow. I just want to set up some items on my table. And I want to drape fabric over top of them so I can see light and shadow. All right? Now, I'm going to start my next drawing as if the fabric wasn't even there. And you may want to do this. It may be that you want to take this off. You want to draw the cube and the cone and the box behind it. Then you want to drape this over. Create something that is interesting. I kind of want this to come out. Maybe I'll set something up in front. To hold it out there. Just because I like the way that shadow core, I want to have some things in there that I can show light and shadow, drapery and shadow core. I think that my first step in this drawing is to think about composition, right? So I think I'm going to do a horizontal. Okay, so to draw this, I'm going to first imagine that the fabric is not there. And that I see in the right-hand side an elliptical form and an ellipse up behind it, approximately, this form's probably about this big. Measuring my lines and angles still. Please don't give up on your perspective. I'm looking at the negative space here and I'm noticing that this box here and this box and this triangle over here are much too close to each other. So I've got to come here, maybe find the angle of this fabric here will help me. Bit of a shadow down in there. I could just go in here with my black now and start making shapes and say, this is all going to be shadow. There's a big triangle of shadow over here, right? I have to move my clips when I get over there. Sort of scooping off this way, but I can change all that stuff later. Right now I'm just shadow blocking this area in. Once I do that, it makes me a little braver here. I can go darker with my darks. I see a shadow coming across here. This is all in shadow, but this here I'm going to change as I come to block that shadow in, because this negative shape here comes clear over to here, and then this comes up out of it. And now I'm making this space much more like what I see. I've still got some issues. I'm going to measure the back of the table from this corner, come down this way. I'm going to draw this in over here now. And this is sort of a sketchy and broad mark making process. This is combining week 1, where I said, what's the angle of this right here? This edge, so I think that's wrong. I'm going to change this. So just like I was telling you to do earlier, sometimes you got to give up something that's okay to make something even better. I'm going to move this corner because if I come here and up to here, this edge of the box up here can't be clear down there like I drew it. It's got to be coming up here. There's some ambiguous light in here. I'm not really sure if that's shadow or if that's light versus highlight. It looks like about the same color. I think I'm going to use the same gray that I use for reflected light. So I'm going to take my finger in here, get it a little bit dirty. Maybe I'm going to drag it across my charcoal tool a little bit and just make a gray mark in there. I see a little bit of gray over here. I just want to dust in a tiny little bit. Change it, and then change it again. Make it hard, and then make it soft. Look for those nuances. And then go back to your theory, which is there should be a reflected light in there, and there should be a shadow core there. So I took my kneaded eraser and I carved out a reflected light. So I think I want to go a little bit darker in this area here so that this will read as cast shadow and I'll see better my reflected light there. This comes out here. Now there's a nuance here where as it goes off towards the clamp, so I'm just going to brush some charcoal down in there. Let this be a hard edge where I see this coming up to here. This is a shadow core, and I want to see a reflected light along the edge of it. I'm going to take my kneaded eraser. I'm going to pull it and twist it until I get a fairly sharp point, or I'm going to pull it out to a little bit of an edge there. So I can come along the edge of here and work myself. That didn't work very well. I'm going to try more of a rolled point in there. So I've painted that much too wide. So now I'm going to come up with the side of my tool and I'm going to skinny it up again. I'm going to make all of this into cast shadow coming up to this point here. The reason I'm seeing this line here, it seems, so clearly, is actually that I'm seeing light here and a highlight behind it. So this is paper white back here. So I am going to erase my fingerprints out of there because this is all paper white. This is highlight back here. And this on top of the box is actually going to be light. So I'm going to take my dirty fingers and I'm going to rub up here a little bit. Maybe I need to put a little bit of stuff down. Just so I have a contrast between the top of that box and the front of that box where I see it. When it comes time to get the subtleties back in there, I might go back in here and put some smudges this direction because I'm seeing the fabric do that. Sort of seeing this fabric line come here a little bit. But this definitely needs to be drawn with my eraser. and acknowledges that this is the edge of my box right here now. I'm drawing that in. Five minutes after noon. This, however, this back wall is actually darker than this. So instead of trying to make this do that, I'm just going to come back here and put a little bit of charcoal back in here. Again, so I have a contrast for that to stand up against. Sometimes I'll actually go black back there. So now I can make a decision and say, well, this is going to be my background. So I'm just going to go ahead and black all this stuff behind the table, that wall. Do something like that that gets me some atmosphere back there to work with.